it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do my September wrap-up. Holy macaroni, guys. I read so many books this month, and I actually didn't even realize until I gathered them all up for this video. I think I have 8 books to talk about today, which I'm feeling very proud about. I'm getting really close to actually catching up on my Goodreads reading goal, which I was very behind on, so hey, if I can continue this for the rest of the year, I might be able to defeat that goal, which would be a surprise because I set it not really thinking I'd be able to meet it. Anyway, without further ado, let's just dive right into the books I read this month. The first book I'm going to talk about, I've lost or misplaced its dust jacket somewhere, but this is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, the 3rd Stormlight Archive novel. I read the last 700 to 800 pages of this book this month, and obviously I loved it. I flew through it. This series is just absolutely captivating, particularly with each book Brandon Sanderson's able to shed more light on a lot of our favorite characters. Particularly, we got a view into Dalinar's past, and we also had to see Shalyn face and overcome a lot of personal trauma and obstacles with her own past. Beyond that, though, he continues to expand the political world of this book. Also, just the pure scope of the conflict is just absolutely overwhelming at times, but just incredible to read. It's so good. I love it so much. The characters are incredible, but beyond that, I also find Brandon Sanderson's writing to be very approachable, and the story itself is so easy to fall into despite its enormous size. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars like I gave the first 2. I'm anxiously waiting for the 4th one. I cannot wait. I love this series. The next book I picked up was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is a very short ghost story centered book. I picked it up because I thought it'd be perfect for the fall season. It follows a young girl who, after a near-death experience, is able to see and interact with ghosts. Growing up and living in America, she sees ghosts every once in a while, but it's definitely not something she's overwhelmed by. But when her parents, who are scholars of ghosts and also get a television show where they have to investigate the world's most haunted places, moves her to Edinburgh for the summer, she quickly realizes that there are a lot more ghosts out there and not all of them are friendly. She has to then begin to understand and encounter her own powers to save herself and the one she loves. I liked this book. The book I read really fast, and I enjoyed the atmosphere, and I thought it was a great book for the season, so it's definitely something I recommend. But ultimately, I would say I'm more disappointed with this book in that I was expecting more from Victoria Schwab. Overall, this book kind of felt a little surface level. It was entertaining, I liked the characters, but it didn't have the lyrical and beautiful writing that I kind of come to expect from Victoria Schwab, and that I also felt like the plot was very surface level, and we didn't really kind of get a lot of deep investigation of this world of ghosts, and it was really short, and I just felt like the plot could have just been expanded on and have been a little more juicy. That being said, it was entertaining. I still think it's a great book for the season. I'd recommend picking it up if you're interested, but I ended up giving us a 3 out of 5 stars. Next book I picked up this month was the Perustopia Book Club pick of the month, and this month we are working with Macmillan Teen, and that is The Novice by Tyron Matharu, and this is the first book to a many book fantasy series, and I have to say, I personally really enjoyed this. This is a kind of demon-centered story. We follow our main character Fletcher, who is the apprentice of a blacksmith and also an orphan. At the beginning of the story, he accidentally summons a demon and is then sent to battle mage school. In this world, the humans are at war with orcs, and they use battle mages as kind of leaders in the army because they're really powerful with being able to fight with demons, and there's also a lot of conflict with the dwarves and the elves as well. I thought this was a really fun and first book to a series. I thought the beginning was a little slow, but once Fletcher got to the battle mage school, I started to love it. It felt kind of like Digimon meets fantasy. I just thought it was so cool to see them learn how to fight with demons and also just learn how to use magic in general. I love a magic school setting. It is no secret. Fletcher as a main character is really charming and lovable. You're rooting for him as well as all of his friends that are a bit of a ragtag teen collection. I also think an additional criticism I would give is I just wish there was more time at the school. I would love to have maybe 200 more pages of Fletcher kind of learning and overcoming obstacles before kind of the big action elements at the end, and that's really coming from a place of I really liked the setting. I thought the classroom setting was really interesting, and I just wanted a bit more expansion on that. But overall, this book was really entertaining and a lot of fun. I feel like it's kind of in a place between YA and middle grade, which is a sweet spot for me personally. I love magic schools, I love cute little dragon demons, and I'm actually excited to see where the next ones go, because we'll see Fletcher grow up and become, I'm assuming, more attuned to his own powers. That being said, I gave this first one 3.75 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really entertaining and a very fast read, and I'm definitely excited to pick up the rest of the books in the series. From there, I picked up 2 Kendar Blake books, the first one being the novellas The Queen of Fenburn, and then I picked up the third novel, Two Dark Reigns. Speaking to this little novella duology, this contains 2 novellas. I'm not usually someone who likes to read these in between books. I generally skip them, but I'm actually really happy I picked this up for 2 reasons. One, I felt like it gave a really great refresher and just adding additional backstories to a lot of the characters we've already encountered in this series. It had been a whole year since I read the second one, so just being able to read and basically remember a lot of the characters before jumping in the third book I thought was super helpful. But more than that, the Oracle Queen, which is one of the novellas in this little series, I thought was so interesting. It covered a historical queen that's often referenced in this series, but to gain the full viewpoint and picture of her was so cool. And it also just points to how unbelievably diabolical the politics are on this island. Man, it's a novella that's short, but it will leave you breathless, and then you see the consequences of it in Two Dark Reigns. So due to that, I definitely would recommend picking this up if you're a fan of the series. I definitely thought it was beneficial to read. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up Two Dark Reigns by Kendar Blake, one of my most anticipated books of the year and the third book to the series, and I thought this was just another great extension. I'm constantly like flabbergasted, I guess is a word, by how Kendar Blake is constantly able to expand this world. I'm always like, where's she gonna take it next? Like, how can she keep this story going? And then she does, and it's awesome. I feel like the synopsis of this book is pretty well known. It's about 3 sisters on an island. They have to fight for the crown. They all have different magical abilities, but this one really began to harness a lot more of the island's backstory and history to give color to the conflict, and I thought it just like grew the world even more. I think there's one more book left in this series, and I feel like it's going to be quite the explosive ending, and I cannot wait. That being said, I gave this third installment a 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend if you haven't picked this up. Next up, I read The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. This is the sequel to The Last Magician. It actually comes out in October, but I got an early reading copy, which I'm so grateful for. The Last Magician was one of my favorite books of last year. It's an incredible story that has a lot of different plot elements, but Lisa Maxwell does a fantastic job. It's set in 1902 New York, and we follow our main character Esta, who's from our time period, and magic in this world is considered something that should be destroyed, therefore any magic wielders are ostracized. Esta, who has magic herself, is able to stop and control time as well as time travel. She's sent on a mission back to 1902 from current day to save a book and stop a magician, to save the world and other magic wielders as she knows it. She does this by infiltrating a gang and basically begins to learn the dark secrets and a whole bunch of plots that surround not only her in current time, but people in the past. It was an amazing first installment, and I was super excited to see where the story took off. The sequel, in my opinion, was even better than the first one. Something that I think Lisa Maxwell does so well is, one, she makes time travel not gimmicky. I usually don't like it when I encounter it in novels. She does it in a way that's, one, not confusing and actually like not just a loophole to the story, but really is useful to the plot itself. 2, I really love all of the different perspectives that exist in this book. We're not just reading from Esta's perspective. In fact, we're reading from a huge cast of characters, and the 1902 setting not only adds really interesting color from like an ambiance perspective, but all reading from a very diverse cast, from a Chinese immigrant to a black woman to all sorts of different characters that will interact in this time period very differently. And I just thought it added such interesting storylines, and I just loved them so much. Jianu specifically is just one of my favorite characters. This is just such a rich and interesting fantasy story, and I feel like it's so clever. I gave the sequel 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely check this one out. Next up, I read And the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness, illustrated by Raivani Kai. This is a short illustrated novel that has full page illustrations that are quite beautiful. But this is I want to say like a retelling of Moby Dick, but from the perspective of a whale. This is a story that definitely plays on perspectives, with many of the illustrations from our viewpoint being upside down, but from the whale's viewpoint is right side up, because the ocean is like their sky. Our land is like the unknown abyss that we often view the ocean, which I think is a really interesting contrast. But we read from the perspective of a whale, and he's a part of this whale society, and he's a hunter of humans, and humans are hunters of whales. And it just basically plays with the complexity of, do you become a devil by hunting down the devil itself? And Patrick Ness also artfully weaves in the complexities of war and revenge and all of those things in a very short but impactful book. It made me cry. I love these whales. Therefore is something I ultimately really enjoyed. I read it in about an hour and a half, but I liked it a lot. I ended up giving it like a 3.75 4-star. And the last book I'm gonna talk about is the book I'm currently reading, and that is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is my new commute book since I finished Oathbringer, and I'm loving it so much. I have just been sleeping on this book for 5 years. For some reason it was a book that didn't really call for me, and even when I picked it up I was like, oh, I'm sure this is good, but it's not gonna be as good as Oathbringer. Guys, this book is awesome. Again, I'm only halfway through, but the world is so fascinating and I love the characters so much. The magic system in this book is centered around the concept of breaths. Every human has one breath, but you can collect more if they're given to you freely by another human. And the more breaths you have, the more powerful you are, as you can basically turn inanimate objects to life, and you can also control like the colors around you. As the more breaths you have, like the more colorful the world is. This story follows two sisters from a kingdom, and one is sent to marry the God King, which is the most like powerful figure in a competing kingdom, and the other sister comes to basically try to save her sister's life, and they are quickly involved in many political plots, and I love this book so much. But yes, this book is definitely capturing so much of my attention. I can't wait to read it in the month of October as well. The political system is one that I've truly never encountered before, and the way that this government is structured is just so unique. Around the concept of humans making gods and then making them their rulers of their own world is a really interesting one, and I cannot wait to read the rest of this book. Alrighty guys, those are all of the books I read in the month of September. Let me know down below some books you've read recently, as I would love to know, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!